Hi, I'm John Burlingame. The date is October the 3rd, 2008, and I'm conducting this interview with Lalo Schifrin for the Archive of American Television. Lalo, welcome. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
We want to take just a few minutes to talk a little bit about your background and your very early years and musical education. So what was your name at birth?
Boris Claudio Schifrin.
And when and where were you born?
I was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, the 21st of June of 1932.
And did you grow up in Buenos Aires?
Yes.
And what were your father's and mother's names, and what did they do?
My father, his name was Luis Schifrin. He was a concertmaster of the Buenos Aires Philharmonic for 35 years. And my mother's name was Clara. And she was just a great mother and a great housewife.
And what traits do you think you inherited from your parents?
Well, music probably, because in both families, my paternal and my maternal family, they were all musicians. I had an uncle, brother of my father, who was the first cello of the same orchestra where he was first violin. And in my mother's side, also, they were all musicians.
Mm. Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have a sister who she lives in New York City now. She's 6 years younger than me, but she teaches Latin American literature in Columbia University.
Uh-huh. And what is her name?
Flora.
When did you start to play a musical instrument, and what was it?
Well, I started to play around 5 years old, and it was piano, and I still play it.
And did you have any hobbies growing up, or was music your primary focus?
Well, my main hobby is silence. No, I used to play soccer, rugby. I did like to play chess, and I still do. But I would say soccer and rugby, and also in the summers we went to resorts, and I was swimming there, like to swim. So basically, like any child.
Can you talk about the music that you were surrounded by, and when you first heard jazz as a kid?
No, I was surrounded by classical music only. But when I went to the secondary school, which in Argentina is called Colegio Nacional Buenos Aires, National College of Buenos Aires, and it was a very good college. It was difficult to get in and difficult to get out. So that's when some friends, classmates started to bring jazz records, and I was totally absorbed in that music. It was like a illumination. It was a very, very important moment in my life, because I became a converted to jazz.
About how old were you?
Oh, I was about 15 or 16 years old.
And who did you study with while you were in Buenos Aires?
Well, my first piano teacher was Enrique Barenboim, who was Daniel Barenboim's father. And I studied also with one of the first defectors from the Soviet Union, who had been the director of the Kiev Conservatory, Ukraine. His name was Andreas Karalis. He Greek descent, but he was from Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. And at what point did you go to Paris?
Oh, that was when I was 20. I got a scholarship to study in the Paris Conservatory. And I went there, no, 22, I was 22. Yeah, 4 years. So from 1952 to 54. No, to 52 to 56, I studied in Paris.
And who did you study with while you were there?
Well, I had many teachers, but one of them was Olivier Messiaen, one of the greatest composers of the 20th century.
And what would you say you absorbed from him?
Well, it would be beyond the scope of this interview. So the only thing I can tell you is that with him I learned how to listen to music from a different point of view. And he opened my windows to other worlds in music.
And while you were studying classical music by day in Paris, were you also engaging in your love of jazz?
Yes, I was earning my living because the scholarship didn't pay for too much, and I wanted to have my own apartment, my own independence living, pay for my own food. I didn't like to be in the domes of the Argentinian pavilion, University City had an Argentinian pavilion, but I stayed there for a few days and then I looked for an apartment, and I paid it by doing arrangements for French record companies and also by playing jazz with some of the best European, French and Belgians, and there were American players there too.
And how did your classical teachers, what did they think about you playing jazz?
Well, for instance, Messiaen, he almost stopped talking to me. But there were some of them that they were very tolerant. Some of them were tolerant. And I didn't mix, as long as I was doing my work for the conservatory and I was doing my work, and I was not sleeping because between the jazz at night, I'm getting ready for the conservatory and also doing my work for the conservatory. I had a lot of exams and a lot of oral and written work, that I had to complete. So it was fun. I was young, and I would do it again if I had to do it again.
So you returned to Buenos Aires in 1956?
Yes. I only returned to visit my family, but I got an offer to have my own jazz band for television and radio. And that gave me a visibility and a popularity that I didn't expect. 26 years old and to have this incredible possibilities of doing so many things. And Dizzy Gillespie came while I was there. He was his band. It was the United States embassy. It was the State Department band with all stars. Quincy Jones was playing fourth trumpet. That's when I met Quincy, and he was playing fourth trumpet in the band. And they were all incredible musicians. Phil Woods was one of the alto saxophones. And one night they asked my band and myself to play for a tribute. It was a reception that they made for Dizzy and his wife and his musicians. They all came. It was a dinner, and they asked me to play after dinner for him. So I said, yeah, no problem. And we played, and Dizzy heard me play. I conducted from the piano. He heard me playing the piano, and he also heard the music that we played. So he came and said, did you write all these charts, all these arrangements? And I said, yes. Would you like to come to the United States? And I thought it was a joke. I didn't But here I am. A handshake with Dizzy was better than any contract that you can sign.
Did it take a while to get to America?
Yes. Yes, it took me 2 years, from 56 to 88. It took me 2 years to get a green card. You know, I came like a legal alien. And once I was here, it took me some time to get in touch with Dizzy, because he did give me his home number, but he was traveling all the time. So he was never home. So I needed to get some jobs, and I did.
Was this in New York?
Yes.
This was in New York. So when did you finally link up with Dizzy and his band?
In 1960, I went to see him. He was playing at Berland, one of the jazz clubs. They used to call it Jazz Corner in the World, 52nd Broadway and 52nd Street. Now they moved. They're not anymore there, but it was amazing. And I went and I said, "Oh man," he said, "I heard that you were in New York. Why didn't you call me?"
So did you join his band then in 1960?
Yes.
And how long did you stay with Dizzy then, on the road and wherever?
Oh, I stayed several years. The first thing I wrote for him was the Gillespie Suite, sold 1 million albums. That was before the CDs. And it was for Verve Records. And Verve was a subsidiary of MGM Records. So I started to become the in-house, besides working for Dizzy, I became the in-house arranger and composer for Verve. I did many albums for Jimmy Smith, Carl Jader, Stan Getz, many stars. And I did also for Sarah Vaughan, for many great jazz icons. And the president of MGM Records, you know, at that time MGM was the biggest film studio in Hollywood. He was member of the board of MGM Inc. He was traveling once a month from New York to Los Angeles. And one time he said to my agent, to my manager, I didn't have an agent, he asked him if I would want to come and do movies. And she said yes, because he knew that I wanted to do it. I love the film media, and I love I paid a lot of attention to what other composers, the contribution the other composers have done to film. So that's decided that I came here.
And you had done a film in Argentina, though.
Yes, oh yes.
And it was called?
El Jefe, the chief. It was a kind of metaphor of the Perón government. You know, when I went to Argentina back from France, Perón had been deposed. Perón was well, it was a difficult government. And he had been deposed, and then a new democratic government came. So I went to Argentina only to visit my family. But that's when I got the offer to get my band in television and radio.
So you came to Los Angeles then to start scoring movies?
Yes.
Around 1964?
Three. At the end, 63. It was around, I remember that when I was scoring my first movie here, unfortunately, that's when President Kennedy got killed. So it's around that time.
So fall of 63?
Yes.
Yeah. And was that film Rhino?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me how you met Stanley Wilson and what role he played in your career.
Well, after being in Los Angeles for some time, a few months, I was already busy doing movies television. MGM sent me to France to do Le Félin.
Right.
And I was doing some television also. I did my first television series, I think, was The Blue Light with Robert Goulet, 20th Century Fox. Actually, it was it was not. I think it was NBC, but it was shot and the recordings were at 20th Century Fox.
And how did you get that assignment if it wasn't an MGM production?
They called my agent.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly how I got it. So then Benny Carter, the late Benny Carter, whom I had known from my jazz era, he was writing a lot for Universal, and he was a friend of Stanley Wilson. And with Benny Carter we had trouble doing the tours with Norman Granz in Europe, especially in Europe, with Dizzy and all the jazz stars.
And Benny was an alto sax player.
Oh, yes. Oh, he was a virtuoso.
Yes.
So he was older than me, but so Stanley Wilson told him that he wanted to meet me.
I should ask you, who was Stanley Wilson?
Stanley Wilson was the head of the music department of Universal, the television music department. And he asked Benny to invite me for a dinner that he came, and that's when we met. And he said, why don't you come tomorrow to the studio? And I started to work for Universal.
Did Stanley know your work already?
That's why he wanted the dinner, because of that, because he knew my work.
And what, if you remember, was the first TV show you did at Universal?
I think there was a new series, it was a comedy with Jack Klugman called Somebody Up There.
Harris Against the World?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So that was your first job, was
Yes.
a comedy show?
Yes.
Yeah. And did you write the theme as well?
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
And did the work come fairly quickly at that point? Did you do one show after another?
Well, I was doing not only that, but they decided to give me Bonanza and the Virginian, I think, some of the series they had. And also, I did movies of the week. I think some of the first movies of the week.
Let me ask you about a couple of them. You worked on a couple of episodes of the Chrysler Theater.
Yes.
And a couple in particular were very interesting musically. You did one, for example, called A Clash of Cymbals with Laura Devon and Louis Jourdain, in which you conducted classical pieces.
Yes.
Do you recall it? And can you talk about it a little bit?
Well, that was, it made me, it was like, working with Stanley Wilson was like going to school, because I learned, with that film, I was ready then to do later a feature film, The Competition, which is the same idea.
About two pianists?
No, that was two pianists, yeah, but in The Clash of Cymbals was, Louis Jourdain was conductor. It's a little bit different. But I'm talking about the same. Now, there were other films that I did for the Kraft Suspense Theater.
Right.
That was not Universal.
Oh, yes.
It was Universal?
Stanley was in charge there.
Who was, well, there was somebody else that was not Stanley hired me to do either Chrysler or Kraft. It was not Stanley.
Dick Berg, maybe?
No, it was Led Glaskin.
Lud Gluskin at CBS.
Yes, it was for CBS.
Yes. Do you remember anything that's in particular that you did for him?
I don't remember exactly the title, but it was, I did very interesting score with 4 cellos and 4 alto flutes. That's all. It was interesting.
Now, why did you make that creative choice?
At this point, I don't remember, but it worked with the film. It did work with it.
There was another Chrysler Theater you did that had a very unique score that only involved Dizzy Gillespie.
Oh, yes.
It was called A Small Rebellion with Simone Signoret. Can you talk about doing that and why you made that choice?
That was Dick Berg produced that. Yes, when I saw it, I gave me an idea that maybe this would be great to have Dizzy Gillespie a cappella, alone, without rhythm section, without anything. And I would write, it's not a jazz score. I would write down every note, but the way Dizzy phrases it, the way he phrased it, the way and it was almost with mute. He borrows from one bar and gives back on that. He's not like a classical, rigid player. He performed with a lot of freedom and elasticity, and I needed that. So I thought that they were going to kill me for saying that, but they liked it. So, we have only two stars, Simone Signoret and
George Maharis.
John Maharis. So I said, they said, it would be good for the TV Guide to have a third name, music performed by Dizzy Gillespie.
And it was great.
Came out good, yes.
Do you recall any of the other Universal shows you did?
The Black Cloak.
Which was a pilot, right.
And there was another one about
You did an Alfred Hitchcock?
I did, yeah. Yeah, I did an Alfred Hitchcock. But it was a movie of the week.
You did the first movie of the week, actually, called See How They Run?
See How They Run, I remember that, yes.
What can you tell me anything about that score?
I used children voices. It's the first. See, I was getting ready for the Amityville Horror because I used children voices. All these things were preparations. I didn't know at the time, but there's another show that it was about kind of terrorist bomb.
Oh, the Doomsday Flight.
Doomsday Flight.
Yes, another movie,
yes.
which Rod Serling wrote.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you recall about that score? It was about a plane.
Yes, a lot of suspense. Who was the actor in there? The main actor. He was a big actor.
That I don't remember.
Well, me either. Let's keep going.
Well, that's interesting, though, because that was a controversial movie at the time. The idea of a bomb on a plane and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you ever meet Rod Serling?
I think I met him, but I worked mostly with whoever was the director and Jennings Lang, who was vice president of Universal Studios, and also he was the producer.
Did he take an interest in music?
Oh, yes. He was the father of Mike Lang, who is one of the great studio pianists here in town.
Can we talk in general about the process when you were doing a television show? What was the schedule like? And were you writing very quickly?
Very. The process, you go, you see the show, you spot it.
And what is spotting?
Spotting is deciding with the director or producer the places, the spots. That's the spot. The spots in the movie where music starts and ends. It's a very important process. I don't want to talk about it too much now because it would take too long. But it's a very important. It's a very important part of the artistic aspect of film, composing for film or television.
And how long would you have to write a 1 hour television episode?
Well, about 1 week.
And about how much music was required generally?
Well, depends. About 45 minutes or 40 minutes.
And how big an orchestra would you have usually at Universal?
Depends. It depends on the Stanley Wilson was very supportive of his composers, so he used to give us quite big orchestra. I had from 40 to 35 musicians, which for television is, with the budgets of television, it was quite reasonable.
Mm-hmm. And would you record an entire score in 3 or 4 hours for a TV show? How long would it take?
That I don't remember, because I think that the Musicians Union has a clause that you cannot record more than 5 minutes per hour. So I could do 15 minutes in 3 hours. Mm-hmm. And if I had more, I had to do 3 more hours or whatever, 2.
And did you conduct?
Yes.
Did Stanley also conduct?
When I was there, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't remember him conducting, but he was a good conductor. I saw him conducting.
And when you were at Universal, were there a number of other composers also working on television programs? Perhaps people of note?
Well, Bernard Herrmann was there. There was David Grusin, Oliver Nelson, Quincy Jones. There were many colleagues who were working there.
Did you write there at the studio, or would you write at home?
Sometimes I started by writing at the studio. But then I got an office. I was not living in this house. I got an office in Beverly Hills, near the house, a walking distance from the house I was living, and I worked there.
At the same time, you also were working at MGM, not only on films, but also some television there, too.
I did Medical Center there.
Right. And before that, you did a couple episodes of The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yes.
And one year, you actually arranged Jerry Goldsmith's theme for the new season. Do you recall that?
No. But if you say it, it must be true.
It was very cool. For flute and bongos, it was a very cool version of Jerry's theme. Do you remember doing a show called T.H.E. Cat?
Yes, that was NBC. And I think it was shot in Paramount. Boris Segal was the director and producer.
Is that how you got it? Did you know Boris?
No, I didn't know. They called me.
Do you recall anything about your theme or the episodes you wrote for T.H.E. Cat?
New theme. Boris liked the second theme better even. He said that that's very, very good, very commercial.
As a general rule, would you do many episodes of a show that you'd written the theme for?
Well, in the T.H.E. Cat, Boris not only wanted me to be the composer, but I had to be also on the set, because there was a nightclub where T.H.E. Cat, Robert Loggia, he used to hang out and used to go to that club. And the musicians, they were playing there, and I was the leader of the group.
So you were kind of the musical supervisor, too.
Kind of. I think he started by having Brazil 66, Sergio Mendes. But then, I don't know what happened, and he asked me to do it.
Was budget an issue on some of these shows? Or were you always sort of fighting the budget because there was no time and no money?
I never got involved in that. I let my agents. There was a minimum. As long as I was getting what I needed to get, and all the facilities, they were paying for the copying, they were paying for everything. So it was all right.
In this period of the mid-1960s, were you also continuing to record for record albums?
Yes.
At the same time you were doing this, you did a work that won you a Grammy called the Jazz Suite on the Mass Texts.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there is still alive, alto saxophone and flute, Paul Horn, who was working a lot in the studios, but he also was a recording artist. And one time we did a movie, a television movie, I think, or a movie, I don't remember now. And he liked the score so much that he came to me and he had the idea of this jazz mass, and he asked me if I want to write it. And there was a priest, Father O'Connor, whom I had met in Boston. And it was a Catholic priest who was aware of this thing, and he gave me all the benediction, let's say, the approval, and put the Catholic Church behind it. And we did it.
Yeah. And it won a Grammy.
Yes.
Speaking of Grammys, I think we should talk about Mission Impossible.
Okay.
How did you come to be hired for Mission Impossible?
Same way that I got hired. My agent called me and said they want to see you. And I went to see, I went to meet Bruce Geller where they were shooting the pilot of Mission Impossible. I haven't even read the script yet. And I didn't have a clue what it was about. But I realized that it was a lot of suspense. And they gave me something to read their outline. So I liked it. And I said, yeah, I'll do it.
What was Bruce Geller like? Can you describe him?
Oh, he was one of the greatest guys I met. I still miss him. And he was very enthusiastic and inspiring. With him I did another series called Mannix also. And I did some movies too.
We'll get to those. Did Geller ask for anything specifically in terms of music for Mission Impossible?
No, in the contrary, he didn't have time. He didn't have the time to. They were so tight in terms of time to deliver to the network. So there was, I said, we had the idea of writing, he had the idea that I should write a theme that is very inviting, very, a theme very exciting to invite people to listen to the show. Because in television, especially in those days, I don't know now, but people were in the kitchen having a soft drink, and all of a sudden in the living room, the TV set is playing the theme of a show, a new show. And that's when, oh, I have to go to see this. It's like a logo. So we decided, yes, we'll do that. But the bulk of the show had another theme, which was the one I was working in, because I had the timings. They were already shot it and did it, and they put it together, edited. So I said, I have this already done. When can I have the footage of the main title and then credits? So he says, we hire a company that is a graphic television company. They are doing the artwork, but I don't like it. So I kept asking because we were getting close to I had everything ready except main title.
When you say ready for the recording session?
Yes.
Yeah, so you'd written the score for the
bulk
of the show.
Yes, which has another theme called The Plot.
Which is kind of a martial, a military kind of...
Yeah, it was because they were a paramilitary operation. And finally he says, you're going to have to score it without any anything on the screen because they are not ready and I don't like what they did. So we'll score to your music. Give me something rhythmical. So I came with a team. This is great because I wish they would give me more things without music, without anything on the screen.
Earlier you said that you needed to make the theme inviting somehow. What does that mean? How do you do that?
Well, with excitement, with these rhythms, I did it.
You wrote it in an unusual time signature.
5/4.
Why?
Because I don't know why. If we had the time, I would. In my book, I have a anecdote about a reporter in Salzburg when I did Jazz Meets the Symphony that asked me the same question, and it's too long to use it now. But read it in the book.
Okay. So you wrote the theme for Mission Impossible without seeing any footage.
No.
And they then cut the footage to your theme.
Yes.
How big an ensemble did you use? Was it a small group?
No, I think it was about 30, 35 musicians.
And so then later on, when they designed the titles, that's when the lit fuse was included and all that sort of
No, that was always going to be there.
Oh.
Bruce asked me to do the fuse and then get into the rhythm. I think it was 1.5 seconds or something like that.
But he had that idea already?
Yes, yes.
Okay. How important to the series in general was music?
Well, obviously it was very important because that it's very unusual that music for television survived so many years and it became popular through generations. I mean, movies have been made, Mission Impossible movies, in which they used my team, and also it became like a standard.
Also, as I recall, there wasn't much dialogue in the show, so music perhaps had to fill a more important role in the show?
Probably.
How many episodes do you think you did, all told?
I have no idea. I know I did many, but I have no idea how many.
And what were the music facilities like at Paramount? Did you record at Paramount?
Yes, they were good. They were good for what we needed at that time.
Any idea who else wrote music for the series? Did you recommend other composers?
No, I know that Walter Scharf wrote, didn't he?
Yes.
I remember that because he said that he was going to change the theme. And Bruce didn't like that.
Did you?
But Walter Scharf was a great composer, and he was a good friend, and I respected him a lot.
Did you, so you visited, you were there during the shooting of the pilot, at least for one day, right?
A few hours.
Yeah. Did you become acquainted with any of the actors through the years?
Oh, yes, with Martin Landau, Barbara Bain, Greg Morris. Unfortunately, Greg passed away. But yes, I became acquainted with him.
How did the soundtrack album come about? Was the music a big hit from the beginning?
Yes. I think so, yes, they were.
And tell me what you did for the album.
For the album, since we had only two themes, the plot and Mission Impossible, I had to come up with new themes, with different situations, to complete the album. And not only that, they did a Mission Impossible 2. And again, I had to come up with more themes.
What was it like to win the Grammy for Mission Impossible?
Well, you know, it's a good ego stimulator.
And then when they remade the series in the late 1980s, as I recall, you came back and updated your theme.
Yes. What I wanted to say is, I don't want to sound blasé. I felt very nice about winning the Grammy, and that the Television Academy had recognized. They nominated me as the best. It was the Grammy was the art, the recording arts and sciences, but also the Television Academy nominated me. The theme, the music of Mission Impossible became recognized.
Yeah. And I guess for the album, you wrote themes for the characters,
Yes,
which you hadn't done in the show.
exactly.
Did you use that music later on in the show?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe I did in one show, but I don't think so.
Can you talk a little bit about how you updated it for the 1988 remake?
You know, that I have no clue. I mean, I don't remember if I changed it. Did I reorchestrate it?
You used more electronics, I think.
Oh, I did, probably. Yeah.
So, have you been involved in the feature films of Mission Impossible?
No, I haven't.
The theme has been used from time to time, even in television commercials.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
I think that it's nice because it's like a bridge across time. I get, if it's being used by pop groups, they're using samples of Mission Impossible. I get requests for licenses of sampling, not only Mission Impossible, other things for other movies like Bullet, or many. And that makes me very happy to be in touch with the younger generations.
I think it may also be true that a feature film of Mission Impossible would be unthinkable without that theme. It seems that it's an
No,
integral...
that's what I'm saying. It rejuvenates me. The whole thing rejuvenates me.
Is there a connection between Mission Impossible's music and Bruce Lee, the kung fu artist who you later scored a movie for?
Well, he wanted to. He made me. And we met while I was already starting to write the music for Enter the Dragon, and he lived in he used to live in Hong Kong, but he came to California. He came to the United States to do a promotional tour of Enter the Dragon, and the producers, Weintraub, Paul Heller and Weintraub, they asked me to go to have lunch at the commissary in Warner Brothers. And said that Bruce Lee wanted to meet me, and I said, why? I mean, well, he said that Bruce Lee told me that he was practicing martial arts in his dojo in Hong Kong to the music of Mission Impossible.
And how did that make you feel?
Well, you know, it's obvious that made me feel good, but I don't have a big ego, so do not ask me how anything makes me feel.
Okay.
Because I take it the way it is. And at that moment, my main preoccupation was not make me feel. I had to come home and keep writing the music for the score. I haven't finished it yet.
Sure.
And it was a big score.
Let's go back to Bruce Geller and Paramount. You did Mission Impossible in 1966. Then in 1967, Geller did Mannix. How did that come about for you? Did he automatically want you for the music?
Yes. Yes, he wanted me for the music. There was, at the same time, Paul Monash in Fox was doing, CBS had commissioned two different producers to do the same, or practically the same script for two private eyes. And there was, one was Mannix and the other was called Braddock. Braddock was also a pilot. And this put me in a difficulty because when I read the script, and I already had signed to do Braddock, I realized it was the same script of Mannix. They were using computer. This is when the computer came, and they were using, at the beginning, Mannix later on got rid of the computer and became a regular private eye. But the first 2 years, I think, was working for a computer company, of trying to find solutions to problems, crimes or whatever. And I found myself, what do I do now? And I had to write 2 different themes. I think the theme for Braddock was, well, it was totally different, but it was also with high xylophone and flutes, while the theme for Mannix was, the theme for Braddock was more symphonic. The theme for for Mannix was like a jazz waltz. And, Monash was kind of saying, I understand that you're doing Mannix. How does it look? Good, I said. And Bruce Geddes said, how does Braddock look? Okay. So they were both competing. Finally, the CBS bought Mannix. And I in my position was like throwing a coin, and doesn't matter, tails or, I win.
Why did you choose to do Mannix as a jazz waltz?
Well, I think it gave it a different kind of life, and also made it very different from Braddock.
Were there titles already done?
Oh no, that one was already sold.
And did that influence anything the way you wrote at all?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I came with a team and I had to adjust it to the visuals, but it worked. It did work.
I think it was the first time we ever heard a Private Eye done in 3/4 time.
Well, there's time for everything.
Ultimately, I think maybe for the second season, when he got Peggy Fisher as his secretary, Gail Fisher as Peggy, they changed the main title, and it was those boxes that you would see on. Do you recall?
No, I don't recall that.
Okay.
You're talking about a long time ago.
That's it. True. And again, did you do a couple of episodes every season?
Yes. But that was, at that time I was doing a lot of features, other television shows. So I was so busy that these details that you are asking me, I cannot even remember.
You did a couple of other projects for Bruce Geller through the years. One was a series called Bronx with Jack Palance.
That was MGM with Jack Palance, yes.
What do you recall about that?
That was nice. I mean, it was a different kind of score. A different kind of score.
Anything particular stand out about what you were able to write?
Well, it's very difficult to explain music through words. But I remember, I think I had a team, the cellos with the French horns were playing the theme, while the rest of the strings, they were doing a percussive rhythm, and tun, 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 something like that.
Mm-hmm. And you did a pilot for Geller that was called Hunter with John Vernon. Do you recall that?
Yes, kind of, but I don't remember what I wrote.
Okay. I'm told that you wrote the theme for the Paramount Television logo.
Yes.
Do you recall doing that? And about when? Was this about the same time as you?
No, it was a few years later, but that was Bill Stinson, who was the head of the music department. He asked me to do it.
Do you recall how it went?
It went well.
Can you hum it?
No.
Is it the one that goes da 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 da?
I don't remember.
Okay, all right. How do you write a logo for a studio? I mean, is there a thought process? I mean, it seems a very different thing than scoring a motion picture.
I don't think so. I think when you write a motion picture or a television show, you have to come up with some theme or some motif, a group of notes that are going to be very distinctive. And in the case of a television logo, the best example would be the theme of Zarathustra or Richard Strauss. But that would be too pedantic. But something that calls attention.
You did a number of documentaries for television in the 1960s.
Yes.
It looks like David Wolper Productions hired you.
Yes.
And do you know why again?
I have to tell you that Elmer Bernstein, who was a good friend of mine, he was the music director of Wolper Productions. He was a very good friend of Wolper. And he was writing all the shows for Wolper. And there was a producer there who was Mel Stewart. Because Elmer couldn't write anymore, couldn't be more in charge because he was doing too many movies, he was busy outside, and he couldn't do it anymore. So they said, well, can you recommend somebody? And Elmer Bernstein recommended me, Lalo Schifrin. And Mel Stewart said, but he's a jazz composer. We need somebody classical. No, Elmer said, he does classical, he's classical. So that's how it happened.
What was Mel Stewart like?
Well, he was like many producers. He was a little bit difficult, but I got along with him all right.
You did The Making of the President, 1964.
Right.
Do you recall anything about that score?
Well, I met Theodore White, who wrote the books of all the Making of a President. And it was, I remember in that score there's an election day, where I had a montage of different parts of the country, and I made a fugue, starting with one theme of the fugue and then keeps developing. That was very successful.
And unusual.
Yes.
How different is the process of scoring a documentary than scoring a fictional television show?
Well, in general, in the documentary, you have to be more objective. You cannot get too emotional. Although I did I did the Hellstrom Chronicles for them, and it was a documentary about insects, but it gave me the opportunity to write very cutting-edge music, experiment. Although I don't experiment, they call it experiment.
Kind of avant-garde?
Avant-garde, yes.
Yeah. And before you did the Hellstrom Chronicle, you did a show for Wolper called The Hidden World of Insects.
Exactly. That one led to the other. It's what I was telling you from the beginning. One television show was the school, the preparation for a film of the same genre.
You did a 3-part documentary for Wolper called The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich.
Yes.
What do you remember about that experience? Was it difficult?
That was emotional because of Wolper had an obsession with Hitler. He had done so many. I think he got from the Library of Congress. The rumor was that he got from the Library of Congress early in his career, before he even started the company. He got a lot of footage from the Second World War, and he got it, I think, for nothing. And that's why he started to do many things about Hitler. And this documentary was very, very well put together.
And do you recall anything about your music for it?
Well, it was very dramatic and very, you know, there's no mysteries. If they're showing concentration camps and people there, you write something funereal. On the other hand, if there is the Nazis marching, you do something marching music, or if there are battles with the Allies, well, you know, war music. That is, I call it straightforward.
And you developed a cantata, a dramatic cantata,
Yes.
from your score.
Yes.
And can you tell me just a little bit about that?
It was performed at the Hollywood Bowl and with the Los Angeles Philharmonic. Lawrence Fonster conducted, and you know, I remember the music of the cantata was based on the television show, which is very unusual, no?
I think nothing like that had ever been done before.
Well, I'm like a bullfighter that likes to play very close to the horns of the bull.
Very good. Okay, let's stop there for now. We're going to change tapes here.
Okay.
That was great. Thank you. This is really interesting.